Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Dorka. I am a self-taught artist, currently struggling with a cold, so you might hear it in my voice, in which case I apologize for the quality. Anyhow, in this video I have captured the whole process of my creating my largest painting so far. I will be honest, I have mixed feelings about the end result. And the root of it all is the medium that I chose to use, which is acrylic paint. So you might ask why I decided to use acrylic paint anyway, and I will get to that. But I want to start with explaining my love-hate relationship with this type of paint. Growing up, I was always focused on drawing, and in my teenage years I slowly started to try to transition into painting. But I really needed to try a lot of things until I found the type of paint that fit the kind of aesthetic that I wanted to achieve. I just used whatever was easiest to get my hands on. All kinds of basic, cheap watercolors or tempera. I tried to paint with those kinds of paints, but they didn't really get me the results that I wanted. And then I discovered acrylics, which got me much closer to the type of look that I was going for in my paintings. I really loved the opacity, the strong, vivid colors that you can get out of acrylics. So I was very enthusiastic, and for several years I mainly painted with acrylics. And when I say mainly, I mean that for every full color picture that I painted, I used acrylics. I did a lot of monochrome work. I love painting with ink, for example. I love black and white pictures as well. But for every color painting, I used acrylics. That was until I discovered oil paint. And then I had a revelation. Oil paint is just so perfectly beautiful, and I find it such a pleasure to work with. I love some of the effects that you can get out of acrylic paint. You can make really interesting textures and nice, vibrant, strong colors. However, it is very hard, or at least I find it very hard, to create smooth gradients with acrylic paint. For example, in this painting, if you look at the sky, I really needed to make the transition between the slightly different shades of blue really smooth. And it was hard to achieve that. I struggled a lot. But for other areas, for example the mountains, where there are different rough textures, I think acrylics are really great. And I will admit that if I put more effort into learning acrylics even better and improving my skills, I think I could have used them to achieve much better results. But still, oil paint just gets me there so much easier. So at one point I decided that I was never going to struggle with acrylics anymore. I would just go with oil paint instead. And yet here I am now, painting this giant picture with acrylic paint. So why is that? There were several reasons why I decided to go with acrylics, but the most important one was the drying time. In this case, a fast drying time was very important, because this painting was actually a commission by an acquaintance of mine. And I knew from the beginning that this painting would take me a really long time to finish, because I was still in school, in university, while also working at the same time. So I knew that I would only be able to work on this painting really sporadically, leaving several weeks or, in the worst case, months between two painting sessions. So I knew that it would already require a very long time until it's finished, and I didn't want to add several weeks of drying time, which would have been the case with oil paints. Acrylics dry really fast, so I knew that as soon as the painting would be finished, I would be able to hand it over to the customer. That's why I chose this type of paint. And I do think that it works well for most of the painting. I did struggle with the parts like the sky and the big grassy plains where there's not a lot of color and smoothness would be the desirable result. But I think the mountains and the forests with all those different colors and textures and contrasts, I think they came out really nice. I also want to mention the podcast that I was listening to while working on this painting, because I think you should check it out if you are interested in art history in the slightest. It's called Art Holes by Michael Anthony, and it's a super entertaining and informative series about the life of some famous artists. Unfortunately, this podcast doesn't have a lot of series. It doesn't have a lot of episodes, which is really a shame because it's really great. But I imagine what tremendous work it takes to put these episodes together, so no shade there, but I really hope it will be continued someday. So yeah, I had a very nice time working on this painting. You may or may not know that prior to my starting to work on this piece, I actually had a really long and mostly unintentional break from making art, and this was the first piece that I started after this break, and it kind of brought me back into a painting routine. Very slowly and gradually, but surely it did bring me back. I enjoyed working on this so much. I enjoyed just going to my studio and not thinking about anything else, just the painting in front of me. It was really a relief and a return to myself and to a lifestyle that I am really longing for. I think I haven't mentioned yet, but I worked from a reference photo in this case, and it's not a photo of my own. It was provided by the client, which I think they just found on the internet, but that doesn't really matter. Anyway, it's a photo of a place called Santa Maddalena in Italy. It's in the Italian Dolomites. I think we can all agree that this looks wonderful, and I really hope that I get to see it someday with my own eyes. Looks like a really beautiful place to hike. I don't know what else to tell you related to this picture, so I think I will just shut up. But if you have any questions, any questions really, just leave it in the comments, please. Maybe just one more thing. I am actually planning to do a full time-lapse of the entire process of painting this picture. But rendering such a large amount of video clips that I have for this piece, well, it takes a really long time, so I keep putting it off. But there will be a full time-lapse, and whenever it's finished, I will just put a link in the description box of this video. So someday it will be there. I think I will just leave you with some bird chirping from this point on. I really don't know what else to say, so thank you very much for joining me today in this video, and I hope I will see you again soon. Bye bye!